is for the Attorney-General. The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse 2017 recommended that, and I quote, each Australian Director of Public Prosecution should establish robust and effective internal audit processes to audit their compliance with policies for decision-making and consultation with victims and police, unquote. The OPP undertook such an audit and reported in their 2019-20 annual report that only 80% of victims were treated in compliance with organisational policies. This is despite the Victims Charter mandating consultation with victims of crime at a number of stages in the criminal trial process. It is unacceptable that 20% of victims of crime are not provided with standards of service, which is their right under law. There is a significant risk that they are further traumatised through these failures. My question is, can the Attorney explain if the OPP has taken steps to improve this outcome and, given the insights of this audit, if they intend to run it annually or in the future?
Thank you, President. And whilst I thank Mr Grimbley for his question, it's a very, very specific question about an independent body and the assurances that I have in relation to the matters that you've raised. First of all, you've quoted some statistics that I do not have the opportunity to, I don't dispute you, but I have not got that level of information in front of me. I can commit to take on notice and seek some further information from the OPP. I would repeat, they're an independent organisation that I do not have operational control over. However, I work fantastically with them. That the work they do in relation to protecting the community and ensuring upholding and prosecuting perpetrators is fantastic. Their dealings with victims, in my experience, is first and foremost at the front of the work that they do. They have always identified opportunities for improvement, but in relation to your specific question, I think I should seek some specific advice rather than, because it is a very specific question.
Mr Grimbley.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Attorney. The poor compliance is not limited to the OPP. The Victims of Crime Commissioner has reported in its 2019-20 annual report that only 31% of prescribed agencies is having mechanisms in place to comply with the legislation. Despite recommendations by the VLRC in their 2016 report to institute remedies for victims failed by the system, there remains no penalty or consequence for agencies who do not meet compliance with the Charter. As I said last week, the Charter is a toothless tiger, without means to hold agencies to account. To strengthen victims' rights, one of the recommendations of this same report was to provide guarantees for the treatment of victims of crime in the Human Rights Charter. This would mean that every bill in this place would need to be compliant with victims' rights. That can only be a good thing, but yet to date it has not been implemented. My supplementary question therefore is, given departments are lacking in their compliance with the toothless tiger, why has the government not implemented this recommendation to uphold victims' rights through the Human Rights Charter?
Mr Grimbley, before I had problem with your supplementary, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know how it was related to the question or to the answer, and I think it's broader than what I thought to the Attorney General, so I'm going to give you a chance to rephrase it in a different way.
Thank you, President. I'm not really too sure how I can rephrase it. So my substantive question was in relation to the Victims Charter specifically, and my supplementary question is asking the Attorney-General if the Human Rights Charter can incorporate the Victims Charter when we are debating bills in this place. So it's really tricky to reword the supplementary question, but I'm happy to perhaps.
Grimbley, for your supplementary question, you are asking for a significant policy announcement right now. What I would say is that the Charter of Human Rights applies to victims. Victims have are afforded the rights afforded to every Victorian that are provided for in the Charter of Human Rights. In relation to strengthening support for victims, that's something that I committed to in my response to your question last week in relation to the Victims Charter, which we acknowledge is 15 years old, in relation to how organisations and departments are across the issues that are important to victims. I think that that's something that we should always continue to do. We have a proud history of supporting victims. The Victims of Crime Commissioner is someone that I'm working with on ensuring that we can continue to evolve government policies and awareness within government to support our victims throughout the process and their recovery processes, etc. And my commitment to that remains.